Hi, everybody. Welcome in to our new special show. It's the U.S. Soccer Podcast. I am David Goss. Alongside me is Megan Klingenberg. We are very excited for what is to come. We have an incredible show coming up in this episode, and then we're going to do a lot more after this. It's our first time working together, but I think we're both very passionate about what we can do with this show and what this show can be. I know you have some clear ideas about what you're trying to do with this show.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I signed up for this was because I laid down some boundaries right away, and I was like, I really don't want to be talking about tactics. I don't want to be talking about statistics. This isn't a match recap show. To me, that's not interesting. That's what I've been doing for the last 15, 20 years of my life. I'd like to do something different. And I said, I really want this to be about the untold stories of the players, the things that you don't get to hear about, what makes them tick, what is their why. And it's the human part of it, the part that is the good stuff, in my opinion. And so that's what's got me excited about this, is that we're going to be talking to people about what they really care about, what is the most important thing in their lives, not just how they scored that goal last weekend.
I came to this sport as a fan of the U.S. national team. On the men's and women's side, it is what brought me in, and I think the game is the greatest thing in the world. It connects so many people across so many languages and borders and spaces. And like you said, I'm really excited to let people in a little bit from behind about how these people tick, and it helps you connect, I think, and feel passionate about these teams. And we are approaching I think a 2, 3, 4 year span where we're talking about World Cups, not just in the U.S., but in this time zone in Brazil and an Olympics in L.A. And I think the sport's going to change and a lot is going to change. But I think what makes everyone great fans is loving the people that are a part of the team and understanding a little bit of the why when you see the big scream on the field or you see the emotion as you get subbed off. And I think the opportunity to do that here is really, really special. And I'm really excited for what we're going to build on this show. We've got an unbelievable first episode for people here on this one. We have the former captain, Becky Sauerbrunn, who's going to be joining us in just a moment to talk about retirement and legacy and what's been built in the past, and then passing it on and leadership of how you pass it along. And then we're going to talk to the current captain, because that's the next step, Lindsey Heaps, and we're going to talk to her about her leadership style and what she's building in this team and how maybe the young players are different from the veterans when she came in and how she's changed herself in the experiences of what's been needed from her. And I think it's going to be phenomenal, but part of why we're doing all of this is because of you. You're on this side and you're not being the one interviewed as the current player.
Yeah, it's a little different being here now instead of being the person interviewed. And yeah, I guess I got to dive into why now.
I think so.
As we just talked about, this show isn't about stats or standings. It's about the good stuff, the unfiltered stories, the unforgettable pieces of why we play. And it's about the joy, the people, the connection, because soccer's never just been about what I do. It's shaped who I am and how I see the world. And that's what this show's about, the stories behind the players, the culture around the game, and the unexpected moments that remind us of why we fell in love with soccer in the first place. So it only felt right to start at the most personal place that I could, my own retirement. And not just mine, but my best friend's too. Becky Sauerbrunn and I have played side by side for years on the field and in life. We've won titles. We have shared hotel rooms. We've laughed in locker rooms. We've cried in locker rooms. We've laughed till it hurts. And now we're both stepping into whatever comes next. So today we're talking about what it means to leave the game, but not leave it behind. And about the decision to retire, the things that no one tells you, and the joy we're chasing next.
All right, Kling, a really emotional conversation here. I want to start by just saying, how did you know now was time? How did you come to this decision on stepping away from being a professional soccer player?
I'm not sure that it was exactly, my choice right at the beginning. it felt like the choice was more made for me. And I think something that people don't really realize is that oftentimes, even if we get the most amazing career that we could have, that is beyond our wildest dreams, we still don't get to choose how it ends. I mean, there's literally one person that I can think of that had their fairy tale ending, and that was Ali Krieger. And I'm sure she would say there was a lot of parts of her career that were really hard and that weren't great and didn't end the way that she wanted it to end. So I just think that as an athlete, we always are like, I'm going to go out on top. I'm going to be that person that wins the championship and then rides off into the sunset, and that's going to be it. But that's not how it worked for me. So I don't think at the time I was ready to be like, hey, this is the end for me. But then as I sat in it and I was like, okay, I'm going to go train and see if I want to play for another team. And I was training and I was miserable. And I was like, this is not what I want to do anymore. And I don't miss the grind. I don't miss like the schedule. There were just so many things that I didn't want to do anymore. And so when I sat down and I said, okay, maybe I didn't make this decision exactly in the moment, and maybe the last moment wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, it actually did end up being what was best for me and my heart. So it was really hard to get to this place, but I feel very at peace knowing that I am done and pursuing something new and finding my joy somewhere else.
You've gone through a similar experience. You're here to help us support Kling on this one, but what was your thought process? Was it similar to that?
Very much so. I think it's all about the journey, which is something that you've always talked about. It's not how it ends or how it begins, but really the moments in between. And so for me, when I said goodbye, it was really like, how did I feel about that last season? And then also thinking about all the seasons. And I just wanted to end my career feeling like a soccer player. And I feel very grateful that I got to do that. I got to have a season. I got to hoist one last trophy with the USWNT that, I was an alternate call-in to. Like, that never should have happened. And so I feel very fortunate that I got to say goodbye the way that I wanted to, as much as you can. Of course, you want the fairy tale.
Right.
It is such the exception to the rule. Like, it's really rare to have an Ali Krieger moment like that.
Truly.
And it's so awesome when it does happen that way, but very rare.
I know, it really never happens. Like, you think of the contrast with Megan Rapinoe, who had the most storied career that you could have, and then in that exact same game where Ali Krieger is having her storybook moment, Megan Rapinoe tears her Achilles. It's just like, I mean, you just don't get to choose. No matter who you are, you could be the best player in the entire world, and it just isn't usually the way that you want it to go. I feel like that's a huge myth that people think, like, you ride off into the sunset. And it's something that I thought too. And it's just not what happened. So that's really been interesting. But I feel like for soccer, in the last couple of years, I've realized, okay, soccer is what I do. It's not who I am. And for me, it was really hard at first because I was like, this is who I am. This is my identity. I am attached to this, And as I've been unraveling that over the last couple of years, I feel like it's allowed me to play with so much more joy, enjoy the journey, and then like really pursue mastery of something without perfection, because I knew perfection is never going to be a real thing. So like for me, soccer in these last couple of years has been about joy, the pursuit of mastery, and the connection, the deep, deep connection with people. Have you had sort of like a kind of has soccer allowed you to pursue, has soccer allowed you to pursue your purpose or your why in that way as well?
Oh, Kling, always with the big questions. I think I'm still trying to find my purpose outside of soccer. I think during soccer, I knew I could bring joy and I could bring connection on the field, and then off the field, I could use that platform to impact change and make change in the world. And so I think that because my platform has changed a little bit, but I still have one, I think that will be part of my purpose, is still trying to make soccer accessible to absolutely everybody, to still make connections and still to bring that joy. It's just building a community around the sport.
Right. And I feel like there's so much with soccer, we're like so attached to the winning and the losing. And in the last couple of years, I'm like, that didn't really matter to me as much. We just talked to Lindsey, and she was like, winning is everything. And I'm over here being like, I don't care about winning or losing anywhere. Like, of course I do, but I'm just like, if I bring my best, I could literally be the best player on the entire pitch and still not win.
Do you know when that shifted for you?
It shifted like probably around the pandemic, where I had to sit with all of my feelings and really.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
For you.
And figure out like why do I do this and what is important to me? Because I just wasn't having fun playing soccer anymore. And I was like, I really want this to be fun. And so I feel like I had to shift my perspective on success and failure. Like, what to me is success, what defines success, and what defines failure. And I had to shift it and figure it out and, like, basically reprogram my entire brain to be like, oh, this is what actually matters to me with soccer, and this isn't. But I'm really interested, Becky, like, have you had a major shift in your perception of what's success and what's failure for you?
I'm kind of a betweener with you and Lindsey, because I always knew that winning was important in the fact that it made the teams that we played on relevant. Mm-hmm. And because of that relevance, more eyes were on us and we could use that platform to do bigger things. The shift I did see with you was in 2020 around that time. You just became, the way you would speak about success did change. And I think that also changed me a little bit, that it was, yeah, of course, we're in a sport that is wins and losses at the end of the day, but how you feel inside and what motivates you. And for me, and I think similar with you, it's like, how do you bring people along on the journey? And can you do it with joy instead of, leading with fear or intimidation? And it's bringing people back to their why. Like, why do you want to do this? And when you have a good idea about why, the wins do seem to come a lot easier than the losses.
They truly do.
And if you do lose, you're kind of like, okay, that was a loss. Let's learn from it and move on to the next one. And I think the culmination of that for us was probably winning in Portland in 2022, where I think, we got to play so much that season together, and we were just having a ball out there.
Blast.
So much fun. We were 1-2ing up the field as a center back and an outside back.
I know. I was like, hit me long.
I got you.
You talk a little bit about playing together. So do you have a favorite story or one that you're going to tell for us here about Kling?
An on-field story?
No, it doesn't have to be on-field.
Any story.
Well, I always.
It doesn't have to be fully appropriate. Yeah, actually it does.
Fully appropriate? How about funny?
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Well, that's what I mean.
One of your first caps.
Oh, no.
We shouldn't name names.
We should. No, I'm kidding. We shouldn't.
But it's just like a testament to you never know what's going to happen and you always need to stay ready. It's like Kling is fighting. I don't know if it was your first cap or your
first. Well, no, second. So I got my first cap, cap tied, and then basically Pia was like, "You're never going to play again."
Was that her accent?
You will never play again. I don't know why she's German. She's not. She's clearly Swedish. Anyways, can we edit that, please? Keep going.
So we're playing in China for the Four Nations tournament. And one of our players, I'm not going to name her, had some stomach issues. And she needed to leave the field ASAP.
During the game.
During the game, if you know what I'm talking about. And guess who is up to play in her second cap? This one right here.
Yeah.
And I just love that story because I think my second chance with the national team came from an injury. Your second cap came from a stomach issue. But it's really like you just never know how these opportunities are going to come, and some people never get them.
You truly don't.
And you really you have to make the most.
You do. And I vividly remember standing there on the half line waiting for the sub, and then the sub comes and said player comes sprinting off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and she just bolts past me, not even a high five. She just like, I ain't got time for that. Get on the field. So I got thrown on the field, and I don't even remember who it was against, but I was like, this is awesome. There's nothing to lose. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is wild.
That's actually one of my favorite hypotheticals to put to people is if you're in a World Cup final and you are about to have a stomach issue on the field, do you stay on the field or do you run off? do your business and hope that you don't get subbed off during the time off.
What color shorts?
Oh, white, for sure.
That's tough.
I know.
Those
right?
are that's
a
like
hard hypothetical.
that's like a billion eyeballs on you.
No.
But if it's a World Cup final, I might just say I'm gonna do it.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, I might be ridiculed for life, but if I win, who cares?
If you win, it's a legendary story.
Truly.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I still don't know what I would do.
I don't know what I would do either.
Yeah. What about you?
No one else can. Luckily, I don't have to answer this question, and it's not relevant to me. So I appreciate that. Although I will say, Emma Hayes has said she's talking to people about no more white shorts. So we might all be avoiding
Wow.
this.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
If it wasn't white shorts, I would for sure.
You're
I
good.
would be
Yeah. It's all camouflage. It's its
Totally.
own situation.
100%.
As we move past this a little bit, do you have a Becky story?
I do actually. It's not quite a soccer story, but it's hilarious. So we have a friend. Her name is also Becky. We call her Other Becky.
That's tough.
No. But if I'm with
Other Becky.
yeah, then
she
we call
becomes
her
primary.
Other Becky.
Cool.
Then I
So-
become Other
Yeah.
Becky.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I feel like this says a lot about Becky Sauerbrunn that, yeah, she's just like the humblest.
She's
person
okay with it,
ever.
yeah.
Right. So, anyways, we were with Becky and your partner Zola, and we went to this escape room. And I don't know why we did this, but we just thought it would be fun. So we were in Portland, and we went to this escape room, and they show up, we go in. It's like these people in costume.
Yeah, it was one of the weird ones where they actually have a character in the room with you
Yeah,
for
which-
clues.
Yeah.
Which I have to say I don't
I
particularly
would.
love.
Doesn't sound great.
Yeah, it was not great for us. We were like, ugh. Anyways, so it was like Becky and Zola paired off, and then me and Other Becky paired off, and we were like going through, and we're like, okay, you guys work on these puzzles, and we'll work on these puzzles. And as we're going through it, Other Becky and Zola are just like kind of working at a different pace than me and Becky are. And we just ended up linking up. And we ended up being a team together. And then Becky and Zola were a team. And we literally solved like 6 of the puzzles. And they
Like 6 of the 8.
Yeah.
of the
If not 6 of the 7. Like,
At a World Cup level.
we were like sprinting through the escape room, being like, okay, Becky, great one. I'm going to do this and you do that. And then we'll do this. And they're just like, well, do you think this one goes here? And it was just so natural that we ended up gravitating towards each other and working on the same team. And those two were just laughing about it. They didn't care at all, as you could tell from the puzzles. But it was...
Still mad about it.
No, I'm not mad about it. Like, we had fun solving that
Nice.
many. We were glad they left them for us. But it was just funny that we ended up gravitating towards each other. And it's just like, we know what makes a good team. And we're like, this has been working. We're going to keep the band together, so.
Zola and I got into the car after, and he goes, I get it. And I was like, good. I'm glad you get it.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
You never actually told me that part of the story. That's incredible. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see him.
The teammates are obviously special, right? It's a close bond, but it's also a tough one because you're in high pressure situations. You guys have been together for a very long time. How has your relationship changed, and how does a relationship as close as yours manage the ups and downs and locker room and on-field yells or whatever ends up happening? How does that go along in your lives?
I think just because we have such a great understanding of one another and just accept each other fully, that if one of us freaks out on the other, which it's usually Kling freaking out on me.
Wait a second.
It's with full understanding and like no harsh judgments or anything. It's
Truly.
just like full acceptance, and we'll talk through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me in particular, being more introverted, I've never on a team that I've been on like had that person that like I could rely on for absolutely anything, even if it's a text like, hey, we've got dinner off, like, what do you want to do? Like, to have that type of person on any team is sacred, and to have Kling be that person, like, that has not changed. Like, even to this day, I'm sure in 5 years, we're not going to be playing soccer, talking about soccer, whatever. And if Kling's in town, she's going to be like, where are we going for lunch? True. And we'll pick up, like, we haven't lost a beat.
That's true. Yeah. I think the one thing that has changed is me. I don't think Becky's changed as much. I feel like, and I mean that in the best of ways. I feel like from a younger age, you have been really like clear on what you want to do and who you want to be. And I feel like that's really helped me figure out like who I want to be and how, like, the things that I want to stand for. And I feel like watching you use your voice over the years in situations that are really scary and been really brave. One, because the situation is scary, and two, because you don't like doing that in the first place, has been really inspiring, and it's allowed me to feel comfortable, like, standing up for what I think is right too. But the really funny part about me and Becky's relationship is that she is the calm to my chaos, and whenever we are in a room together, typically we are thinking the same thing, but I'm the one that says it.
You're the brave one.
So I like look to her and I'm like,
Or
"What?"
unfiltered, whichever way.
And then I looked to her and I was like, was that right? And typically she's like,
You got it.
yeah,
That's right.
So that is a funny way of how we interact. But typically, like, yeah, every time I say something, I'm like, how was that?
I usually give you like a little nod or my look.
Yeah. Sometimes the look is like, that was the correct thing, but not
Tone it down.
Yeah.
A little too spicy.
Yeah. It's funny how that works. We're still doing that.
As we talk about this team and this experience as you guys have stepped away, and now we still continue to have a national team that's playing at a high level. You're now still around it, broadcasting, doing this. What do you make of sort of the legacy of your group and what you're hoping is taken on by this next generation?
I am more interested in Kling's legacy.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I feel like that's always the quintessential retirement question is like your legacy. And I imagine that it goes very nicely with what the next generation will have taken from our generation.
Well, I hope that people. I don't think I was this way when I was on the national team.
Okay.
You know, like, I feel like I had more of my mellowing after I wasn't with the team, and my like bigger picture moment when I was, with the Thorns. But I hope people like remember that this is important, and it's not the end all be all of the world. Like, it's very important to represent your country. It's very important to like show up and stand for the important things. And it's okay to like go home and relax and watch Netflix and like enjoy your life and be a person, be a human. I feel like sometimes we get so caught up in being the soccer player that we forget to be the human. And I just really want people to like remember that, because I feel like that will allow them to be their authentic selves in this environment, which it's very hard to be your authentic self in this environment. And so whenever you, I guess that is one thing that I did do.
You did. That's
yeah,
what I was
that's where
gonna
you're
say.
gonna go. I knew it. I messed it up.
No, you found it
I found
yourself.
it. I
Look
found
at that
it.
self-discovery through talking it
Also,
out.
look at the
I
calm
just
and the
love her.
chaos together.
I just love
The
her.
1-2.
She brought me full circle. But yeah, I feel like one of the things that I'm really good at is allowing people to feel comfortable around me and allowing them to feel like they can be exactly who they are. And that, in turn, brings a lot of humor, brilliance, authenticity, just like being their best. And yeah, that's the legacy that I hope that I leave, and that people feel comfortable enough to be who they are here, because it's more than enough.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You came onto the national team and you were so unapologetic about who you were.
Some people hated it.
And some people had struggled with it.
Yeah.
Definitely there was some conflict where I'm like, Kling, you got to jump out of these tackles. Like they're kind of going after you a little bit.
Kinda.
But like you said, like it leads to competition. It leads to people being free to be themselves. And I think this next generation is starting to discover that. I think you have players like a Trinity Rodman. I think with a Lola Bonta just coming in, like these players are celebrated because of their individuality. That's a hard word. And I think people love that about them. And I think it just makes other people feel like, oh, like I don't have to be this robot. Like, I can also express these things. And I think you're starting to see it even in like celebrations and little things on the field. And so I think that is absolutely a part of your legacy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's so kind. Yeah, we went to the beach recently. This is just an aside. This doesn't need to be in the interview, but we could put it in if we like. But we went to the beach, and we all asked each other, like, what do you think is your best quality? Because I feel like that's an important thing to be able to talk about, especially as women. And we asked Becky, and she stalled and stalled and stalled and stalled. But here's where it loops back into this interview, is that I think your legacy, one of the best things that you've done is that you always say that you're not a glass ceiling breaker, but a floor raiser. And that you make it better for everyone, not just like the people that are at the top who can smash their way through. You make it a little bit better for everybody. And I think that's something that you've done as a captain and just as a human, using your voice when it's really scary, especially like now during a time when there's so much uncertainty. And to me, that is such a cool and lasting legacy. And now you put the calm and the chaos together, and I feel like it allows people to be the Becky Sauerbrunn because they feel comfortable being.
Thank you, Kling. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I did stall forever, and I don't even remember answering the question. I think it was like on the car ride home when you asked me again.
I feel like we had to. It was like doing surgery. It was like Becky went to the dentist, and we were extracting like 7 teeth, but eventually we got there, and what I pieced together from it is what I just said.
Yes. It wasn't a straight answer from me, but you did put it together nicely right there. Thank you.
Ghostwriting from Megan Klingenberg. As you both step away and you talk about the legacy on the field, we know the trophies, we know the winnings, but then off the field, a lot of work that's been done in raising the floor. How do you process that, and how do you sort of think about what it looks like now moving forward?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Becky's got a game plan.
Truly. When I look back at what we did, I feel like we relentlessly were quiet toil. Like, we were going at it every single day to try and make things just a little bit better for us and for everybody that came after us at the beginning of our career. And then we had this really awesome moment where we pushed the sport and women's equality and equality in general forward in a huge leap. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people get to do that. So I feel so blessed and grateful and proud that we did that work, that we kept pushing forward and never said no, and always were coming back to the table and always asking for more, and knew we deserved it, and knew that it was going to make a huge difference, not just for us, but for people down the line. I'm just like, when I look back at that, I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe we did that, because progress doesn't typically happen like that. It typically happens, goes forward a little bit. Then there's this big jump back, and then there's a little bit. And then every once in a while, in a blue moon, after you've done so much work and put in so much time, you get this leap forward. And we got to do that. And how cool is that? I just can't even believe that we got to create this new environment. By the way, did you know they have a traveling barista now?
I mean, no.
That's what we worked
awesome.
for.
Yeah. You are welcome. I do want to say that not many people know that huge jump that we got to make was large part because of Megan, and because she had this idea that nobody had really had before about like buffing up our Players Association. How could we start a business? How can we have these other streams of revenue come in? And she had this like the big idea, and we just had, for the first time, I think, a group of players that were really willing to sacrifice the time and energy to see that manifest. Mm-hmm. And you found the right people that are still around this team, still with the Players Association. And I really don't think we would have pushed our CBA across the line and achieved equal pay had you not done any of that. Like,
wow.
Yeah, I think you were the impetus to this moment where this current generation got to say, we achieved equal pay.
Oh my gosh. Wow, Becky, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. I feel like that was a really fun period. It felt like a little startup.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was
right?
a little startup. Like you were a player representative, and I was also a player representative with Kristen Press. And essentially what that is like the CEO of the union. So we had like co-CEOs of the union. That's what was happening. And we just decided that we were like, okay, we're not being represented in a way that feels right for us anymore. Not that it was bad or wrong or whatever. It just wasn't what we needed anymore. Like it wasn't fulfilling our goals because our goals became big. Mm-hmm. And so we went about finding the people that were going to help us achieve those goals. And we still have a lot of those people, still talk to a lot of those people. A lot of those people are still in our lives. Funny story. Can I tell them about Molly?
Sure.
Levinson?
Yeah.
Man, that was so funny. So one of the people that we brought to come on was Molly Levinson, and she owns this like crisis PR firm in DC. Still a really good friend, still like hugely influential in women's soccer world. Great person. And I call her up out of the blue, complete cold call. And I was like, hey, we heard that you're pretty good at your job. We really need some help with PR, and we're always in a crisis, so can you help us? And she's like, oh, absolutely, let me talk to the people at my firm. I'll come back to you with a price. And she's like, okay. I was like, great. So I get a call from her a few days later, and she's like, okay, I'm making this up, but how about, she's like, our rate is typically $40,000 a month. But we're going to give you a great discount. It'll be $20,000 a month, 50% off. And I was like, oh my God, that is so kind of you. How do you feel about zero?
We have no money.
And she ended up being like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm in. And she's still in. And I think one of the coolest parts about that moment, what I'm trying to highlight is that these people came in at this moment where we really needed them, and they're still so involved, and they literally have changed the landscape of this sport and women's equality for the better. And it's just so cool, and I feel like sometimes it's really nice to highlight those people and make sure that they know how much we appreciate them. So Molly's story is always a good one.
Is this something, because we've talked about leadership, and obviously you both have had a huge hand in leadership on the field. Is this something off the field that you're playing with the Sam Coffeys and Sophia Wilsons, now Smith, like moving up? Is this something you talk about with players as well, of like finding your voice and your way off the field and how to push your view and how to try and change the world? Is that a conversation you're having with young players as they come in?
I think Lindsey literally just mentioned that she had these type of talks with you when she was growing into her leadership captaincy role on the national team. She mentioned that.
Yeah, a lot of us kind of near the end of our careers had very intentional meetings with that next gen of leadership. And we would bring them in and we would just talk about, you would think really mundane things, but that are really important to the national team, like traditions, like when someone gets their first cap or their first goal, what do you do? How do you have to organize it? Because there's these things need to continue on, but things need to be done in order for that to happen. But that's part of the fabric of the national team. And so having these really intentional talks, speaking with Lindsey about the captaincy and what that entails and how so much of it is, being that conduit between the players and the staff, managing up and down. And just kind of learning how to do that in a way that is healthy for the group, but also healthy for her. Because there are times where this job can be very tough and you have to deal with some really heavy things. And so making sure that, you're empowering others to also help you, but also, you have to set boundaries for yourself. I think that was probably the biggest thing I could have helped her with, is like, you need to take care of yourself too.
You've stepped away, and now you are stepping away as well. What excites you now? Like, what is it that you said you found this moment where you were a soccer's part of what you do. It's not who you are.
Right.
How do you find now what's next?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm very excited about this new chapter. I feel like I'm in such a great space. I feel like a few months ago, I was like, everything bad's happening to me. Oh my God, I have such bad luck. And then I was like, I need to get it together. So I like one small thing happened and I was like, wow, what great luck I have. And I feel like it's now just been snowballing. And I just have this new outlook. So I feel like I'm in a great place. Basically, I decided to take this year and explore. To me, the most important thing that I can do to set myself up for success in the future is find something that makes me tick like soccer did. Something that is going to allow me to be my best self, that will allow me to pursue like mastery in something where I can connect deeply with people and have a bunch of fun doing it. I need to try out a bunch of stuff, figure out what I like, what I don't like, figure out my boundaries and what makes me feel good and what doesn't feel good anymore. And I just feel like after playing so long doing one thing, that the world is my oyster and I need to try it all.
Speaking of oysters, which you don't eat.
I was going to say.
You did take that 2-week trip to Italy.
I did.
By yourself, where you just got to be.
Eat, gay, love.
Exactly. What a great name. The phrase.
Trademark that.
Happy Pride, right?
Happy Pride.
Yeah. And I'm sure getting to do that and having the freedom of getting to explore yourself outside of soccer and doing things that you love, like eating and making your way through a beautiful country, was probably really helpful on this process.
It was.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was so nice. And, you know, I never could have done that if I was still playing because you just don't own your own schedule. It's one of the things that became super tedious at the end of my career. I was like, I just can't be beholden to all of these other people anymore. Like, I need to be beholden to myself and what I want to do. And so what I wanted to do was cash in all my points and go to Italy. So I did. And I had like so many Aperol spritzes and I did all of the history and I made so many friends and had such a blast just talking to locals and talking to other people on the tours. I was like, this is so great. Like, I can't believe I haven't done this before. And I felt like I really got to sit and relax for the first time in a really long time where nobody knew me. Nobody gave a crap about anything that I was doing except that I was on this tour and I was a really annoying, you know, one of those really annoying tourists that is like in the way of like the people just living their lives in Italy. I was that person totally. I had my fanny pack and my Aperol spritz and I stuck out like a sore thumb. But it was honestly such a great space to be able to just figure out what's working for me now and what isn't. And I felt like after coming back from that trip, even my partner Ingrid was like, wow, you look so much lighter. Like your attitude just feels so much happier and you feel more at peace. And I do feel like that was like very important to be able to do something like that. So 10 out of 10 recommend. Cash in all your points. Have you done your trip?
I have not done my trip because I got pregnant, and so
feels like a bit of a trip itself.
It is a trip. I'm going
journey.
Through my own journey right now, but I hope to one day have something like that where I can travel the world a little bit and just get to see it
with me, maybe.
With me, very, very possibly with you, Kling.
Escape rooms around the world. Prepare yourself.
That would be a different language. We would be terrible.
I don't know.
But I do hope to have a chance to, through the lens of who I'm becoming, as opposed to we've traveled the world, but as soccer players.
Totally.
And so you're on a business trip. It'd be nice to just go somewhere just purely for pleasure.
100%. And you've heard it here first. I am the godmother of Becky's child.
That was implied.
Breaking news on the podcast. I don't know that we can top that, so it's probably a nice way to end. Becky, thanks for joining us for this. It was awesome. Yeah. I just feel lucky to be a wallflower on this one.
Well, I'm honored that I got to speak with you, Kling, about your retirement because I feel like so much of our journey has been spent together, and so you saying goodbye feels like my heart saying goodbye again a little bit. But yeah, congratulations on a great career.
Thank you, and you too. And I really am excited to be part of your next journey too.
Thank you.
This Pride Month, the U.S. Soccer Federation is proud to support You Can Play, a group dedicated to making sports a safe and welcoming space for everyone, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. When you shop our Pride collection at store.ussoccer.com, A portion of the proceeds goes directly to You Can Play to support their mission. Shop now and show your pride. Well, we're talking about leadership and we're talking about the big names and the people carrying this program forward. And it felt like who better to do so than with the captain herself, Lindsey Heaps. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've talked about leadership and what it's like coming into this team. And we were curious just to start when you came in to this program, when you came into the team, who did you see as the leaders? Who did you look up to? Who were you sort of like maybe before you got there and then once you got there, who were the voices that you were listening to?
And who were you scared of?
I was scared of a lot. You were actually very nice at the beginning.
Well, just at the beginning?
No.
There was also a long pause there where I didn't know what word was going to come.
I feel like when I first came into the team, the only person I really knew was Tobin. And then obviously like Morgan, Brian, any of the younger girls. But to be honest, I was afraid of most players. I think it was more just like you don't want to disappoint, and you've looked up to these players, you've watched them, and you've always wanted to be in this environment. So for me, it was just like you don't want to do anything stupid, say anything stupid, and you want to earn their respect. And that's how I've always approached coming into a new team is I want to earn their respect and show them that I deserve to be here. So it was more that kind of fear factor than anything, because I didn't want to disappoint.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're coming into a new group. It has a long history and a long legacy of winning culture, winning teams. Mm-hmm. How did you end up absorbing that culture and learning about that culture?
I remember my first call up. It was Algarve Cup.
Portugal.
Yeah.
Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one session I hadn't played in the game, so I played the next day, and vividly remember Kristen Press. She didn't yell at me, but she kind of just said like level needs to be better.
Yep.
And I knew it in that moment. I think I didn't track a runner or something like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am not going to do that again. And it was something like so simple as that, you know what I mean? And I think that was a shock to me, that that environment, because it was also preparing for a tournament, and we actually won that tournament. I didn't play a key role, but I got my first cap, and I think
every role's important, Lindsey.
Yeah. But it just showed me what the level was, and I hadn't gotten called in for like a year after that. But I was like, okay, that's the standard. That's where, I have to show up every day. I was at PSG at the time, and I need to get back to that level. So that was a big shock for me.
Is there a moment you remember where you went from the young one listening to now I'm here and I'm sort of speaking up more?
2 years ago when I got the captain's armband. No. No, I do think it took me a while. And I think it was more so, like, I had a lot of respect for the players that were there before me. I also have a lot of respect when new players come in now and they have a voice, because I'm like, I wasn't like that. It took me a very, very long time, and I wish it was a little bit quicker. But I do hope you guys realize it was because I wanted to gain as much information for those that, created this environment and these standards and this level. And I didn't feel it was appropriate to speak as much. I just wanted to gain info and to be better every single day. So I do think it came later for me. And maybe, prior to not this past Olympics, but the Olympics prior, and even the World Cup prior, that's where, I got the captain's armband, and I think it was like, Lindsey, you got to. You are the leader on this team, but it was hard to look at myself like that for a while.
Can you think of a moment or a few moments that you're like, oh, wow, that really shaped me and prepared me for this role?
I think there were a few conversations with Becky, actually, that had. I think, I always looked at Becky and everything she did for the team, and you never know all the ins and outs, right? And especially now being the captain, nothing can really prepare you for that. But some conversations that I had with her that were just she was very blunt with me in terms of, standards and in this environment, on the field, off the field. And I think those were the kind of little conversations that probably prepared me the most. Again, it's never like you have to be in it to really feel it. But yeah, I think and with any experienced player, those kind of conversations.
Do you, now that you are in it, how do you define yourself as a leader, and what do you think your strengths are that you try and bring to that role?
I think I care a lot about each individual on the field. I want everyone to be their best self. I obviously want to be my best self every day, and I think my way of showing it, which I've gotten in trouble in the past, but I I want to be the best Lindsey every single day, and when I'm not the best Lindsey, I get absolutely livid. We would have
Confirm.
Yeah, we would have issues in Portland sometimes with my coach. At the time, it was Mark would be like, Lindsey, your body language is really poor. Like, you're screaming, like you're frustrated, all this stuff. Like, players are looking at that and they're looking to you. And I'm like, I'm not frustrated with them.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated with myself. And I hold a very high standard for myself. And I think that's one way of showing all of these young players, like, I'm holding this standard. Like, I want them to hold that same standard. Like, this is the national team. And at the time, it was Portland. But I've had to learn in the process, like, they look to me in hard moments or when things aren't going well or they make a bad pass or something like that. Like, so I've had to shift a little bit where, I hold this standard for myself. I hold a standard for this team. When things aren't good enough, I will share my frustrations.
I never thought that would change.
But how can I do it in the best way? Or when are the moments that I can be like, really stern with the players when it's been too many times or when the level is actually really sorry.
We'll bleep it.
But I hope they see that I will always do that for myself first prior to, getting on someone else. It's always us as a team. And yeah, I do hope they say that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question, which was, I know you've talked about the Leadership Council, and you've talked about it with me as well, of like other people being involved, because you just felt very like, this is how Lindsey does it. How do you lean on other people and sort of try and take their styles in and build this group that can be a leadership group? Yeah,
it's really funny. We were just talking about Becky there. I remember going through something that was it was a lot in the past. I think it was the past year. It was prior to the Olympics, and I was struggling as a captain and as a leader. And I remember talking to her, and one of the pieces of advice that she had given was, who can you rely on in that environment? Can you take any weight off of your shoulders? Can you delegate a little bit in terms of, certain things? And even in the Olympics, I had spoken to Emma afterwards because I was just like, I need some help. And at that time period, it was just really hard to like throw things at all these other players because we had a lot of new staff and just a lot of things that I'm like, I'll take that on. Let me make sure my team's in a good place. But I think now, I have someone like Naomi, who we all know is going to be, a leader and a captain for years to come on this team. But my biggest thing is I want to prepare her the most for that role that she's stepping into, and I've told her that many times where I'm like, you're with me here. You're my co-captain. I want you to learn everything on and off the field, what we have to deal with, because it is really hard to prepare for this role. And she's so incredible. That's not hard. And then you have leaders in itself around this group that have really come into their role, like someone like Emily Sonnett, where maybe we didn't expect that. And, she's had a different role in this team for so long, but now everyone looks at her as a leader and she has to know that. And maybe it's similar to the way I felt where maybe she hasn't seen herself like that, but she does now. So.
You've been a player that's played with two separate generations, my generation and some of the older players, and then now this new young generation. So you've seen kind of what we played for, what we stood for, how the culture was then, and now you're in this new group with all these new faces who are representing this team in a new way. What do you take forward from playing with the older generation and that legacy, and what do you leave behind? This
is so cool because we did I don't want to say assignment because it sounds like we're in school, but we had a meeting revolved around this, and it was basically like, what do we take forward from, you know, our culture, starting from the 99ers, and what do we absolutely have to keep, and then what are the things that, you know, moving forward we have to change and evolve, et cetera, et cetera. So I think for me, like from you guys, like it's that the grit, the passion, the standards that we withhold in every single training environment, meeting environment, game environment. And I think one of the most important ones for me is the winning, like how much we care about winning, because I think there's so much talk over these past few years about the evolution of this team and the new players, the new faces, and how we're playing, the culture change, all these things where I'm like, the one common denominator for me, and especially me as a captain, like I always want to keep in place, is we go out to win every freaking day. And that's in training, that's in meetings, if we're doing quizzes, or like the competitive environment that we've always kept, like in the training environment, like I mean, that's probably why I was so fearful at the beginning, is it was such a difficult environment. It should always be that difficult. But because it was so competitive, and because you knew you were going to show up every single day and you didn't care if you kicked someone or whatever, like you were going to make it the best environment, and you were going to train your hardest to be ready for that game or prepare someone else for the game, or if you're coming in as a sub, like, you know, you're like, it was just, that's how I've always known this environment. And I think it's because we cared so much about winning, and we had this mentality that we knew we would always win. So I think that's one message that I've tried to keep in the team. Like, obviously we care about the evolution and how we're playing and all of these different changes. And I think we've had some losses. We've had some games that we haven't played the greatest, whatever. I think it's at the end of the day reminding everyone, like, we're here to frickin' win. Right. And that is so, so special in this environment. So I hope that we continue that, and that standard never, I get very passionate about this.
I love that.
But I look at you because I'm like, you're one of those people that, you know, drove that into us. And it's really, it's really important, because you would get on us if we're not giving our best every single day. And I think that's what you guys did. Like, that's why we were so, I hate saying scared, but we were scared coming in. We don't want to freaking lose and disappoint.
I don't think we were unkind. It was just, it was just like, this is the standard, and you just got to meet it. And if you're not, then come back some other time. Yeah. That's how it used to be. And I do feel like there are certain things that probably needed to change. Like, what are some things that you want to leave behind that you don't want the new generation to have to take on like we were taking on?
Man.
You can be honest.
No, it's really tough, because it's just a different generation. And I think you might have to coach a little bit differently. And even in terms of me, like, I don't know how best to explain this, but like, we could take a lot of heat from a lot of the older players, and the way that things were said to us, or things being better, or and making sure it's like a very comforting environment. I think now with this new generation, it's a different way of teaching. I think that's for coaches in general. I think it's for older players to younger players, and making sure that you're full on connecting with them prior to like the critiquing and I'm not necessarily saying that it wasn't like that, you know, with you guys. I think it was just a different way. And right now it's like, at the time I came in, it was like a few of us coming into the environment. Here it's like 12, 13 new, like, you can't, that's really difficult. So you're getting everyone up to speed together, and we're kind of the outsiders right now, because we were missing a lot of individuals and whatnot. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, I think we have to let you go win a meeting or whatever you have next.
I'm having fun.
And you can stop talking about leadership and go do it. But we appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, of course.
Congrats on all the success so far, and we're going to enjoy watching you continue to do it.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.